Well, the main connection between education and democracy is that you can't have a democracy without Democrats, small d. So you need democratic citizens who, in each generation, recreate democracy. So then the question becomes, how do you get these democratic citizens? And the basic answer is that they don't grow on trees. They aren't born being democratic citizens. Actually, democratic citizenship is a very difficult idea and a difficult thing to learn, which is why great democratic educators from Aristotle through Jefferson urged education for democracy. So then the question becomes, how do you best educate for democracy? But the key insight there is that you can't expect democracy unless you're educating the next generation for democracy. So there's lots that schools can do to educate democratic citizens. Let's just break it into two parts, content and pedagogy. So on the content side, educational researchers have certainly learned one thing, and that is kids stand a better chance of learning something if it's taught than if it's not. So let's teach democracy from kindergarten through 12th grade. In U.S. schools, it's very common for students in 11th or 12th grade to take the U.S. government and politics course. Meanwhile, in the primary grades, they're learning basic concepts of democratic citizenship, such as community and city and town. Later, they'll know those as jurisdictions. They learn in class meetings to vote. They get the idea of majority rule. They get the idea of minority rights. And right there, majority rule, minority rights are two of the critical attributes of democracy. There's lots of ways to involve kids in the actual practice of democracy from kindergarten right through high school. In the earliest grades, teachers can involve students in classroom problem solving, where they encourage students to have opinions and be able to back up their opinions with reasons. So they learn that they have opinions, they need to have reasons, they learn to share those reasons and opinions with other students. They're prompted to listen to the opinions and reasons of other students, and soon they realize there's a diversity of opinions and reasons in the classroom. And a skillful teacher will bring out that diversity and help kids reason through it, sometimes by voting, other times through discussion. The same thing can be done at home. Parents can bring out diversity of opinions and reasons and teach kids to deal with diversity rather than somehow smearing over it or denying it. Probably the main way that social studies instruction has changed, particularly in the lower grades, is that it's been squeezed to the point where in some schools it's falling off the curriculum table altogether. So what's it being squeezed by? It's being squeezed by laws, both federal and state, that require testing mainly in reading and math. So that has narrowed the curriculum, as we call it, to an almost exclusive focus in some schools on reading and math. In fact, nowadays, to get a well-rounded education, your parents have to be pretty wealthy, because it's the best predictor of whether or not you're getting a well-rounded education is whether or not the community you live in is more affluent. Especially in the secondary schools, middle schools, and high schools, social studies has a pretty secure place, fortunately. So it's very common for kids to be taking the world history course, a U.S. government course, a world geography course, and parents at home can build on those experiences, especially in those three disciplinary areas of geography, world history, and government. So seeing parents read newspapers, not just looking at their screens, but reading newspapers is a very powerful modeling practice for kids. Having resources at home on world history, on world geography, on governments near and far, very powerful experience for kids. TV watching, news watching, together watching actual news, network news, for example, CNN, as opposed to highly polarized news sources on either the left or the right, can be a powerful experience for students, especially when they see their parents doing that. And then, of course, through the internet, kids can be accessing newspapers from around the world. There are sites that feature English newspapers around the world. Al Jazeera is now a possibility for kids alongside CNN. So a news-rich family where news is actually discussed, opinions are invited, reasons for opinions are invited, is a really stimulating home environment for cultivating a global citizen at home. It's true that we are becoming a majority-minority population in the United States, and rapidly. And in fact, that's already the case in city schools. And it's already the case in the younger population. If you include older people in the statistics, then we're not yet a majority-minority population. But if you focus on young people, then we are already in city schools. So what can parents and teachers do to properly educate young people today for that world? Well, again, lots. In schools, probably the most important thing we can do is to have a well-rounded curriculum, the kind of curriculum that rich kids get. Well-rounded liberal arts curriculum, lots of art, which is a great way of exposure to diversity, lots of literature, probably the equally powerful way to expose kids to diversity, lots of world geography, world history, U.S. geography, U.S. history. This is a natural and currently existing venue or platform for exposing kids to the diversity around them. Let me suggest something else. There's a term we have in education called windows and mirrors. And a windows approach to education is to make sure that children see themselves in the curriculum. And I'm sorry, that's a mirrors approach to education. So they're seeing themselves, the curriculum mirrors them. They can see themselves in the curriculum. And it's very important for kids to be able to see themselves in the curriculum. White kids have been seeing themselves, and majority kids have been seeing themselves in the curriculum regularly. So it's important for marginalized kids and minoritized kids to see themselves in the curriculum as well. That's mirroring. Windows is the last thing you want a kid to see is more about him or herself. You want school to be broadening their horizons. You want to be exposing themselves to worlds they've never even imagined. So both aspects of that curriculum can be done as easily at home as in school. Make sure that the kids see themselves in their reading, in their TV watching, in their movie and video watching, in their internet searching, but make sure as well that they see things far from themselves, that they're being exposed to the wide, wide world. Everything that worries parents about sending their kids off to college, in a way, that's the most brilliant thing about being sent off to college, is that you're exposed to a big, diverse world. We sometimes use the metaphor of windows and mirrors to talk about two important dimensions of education, both at home and at school. Mirroring is when a student or a child at home sees themselves in the curriculum. And this is very important. Majority kids, white kids, have been seeing themselves in the curriculum for decades, and only in the last 3 decades or so has the curriculum opened itself up so that African American children, Latino kids, immigrant kids of all manner, Chinese, Japanese Americans, Filipino Americans, Muslim Americans, Jewish Americans, from religion to ethnicity to race, see themselves in the curriculum. It has a normalizing effect. It does for minority kids what it's been doing for majority kids for decades. So it's very powerful. It makes the learning more accessible to them. It helps them learn. It actually helps them learn the curriculum to see themselves in the curriculum. So it's important that in the literature they're reading, the videos they're watching, the internet sites they're searching, that they can connect with them and see themselves there. Just as important, however, is that the curriculum is a window on a world that they haven't seen and can't even imagine. And that's why world history at school is so important, world geography at school is so important. That's really why school is so important, is that it doesn't mirror home life. It's exposing children to an arena of activity and people and places that are far different from the home experience. And obviously that's important. As a matter of fact, that's the heart of what's come to be known as a liberal arts education. So schools are great breeding grounds of ideas. They are great windows on the world. The most important thing schools can do is have a very rich, well-rounded, rigorous curriculum loaded with mind-altering ideas, stories about people near and far, places now and then, beyond the child's imagination. And what we can do at home to reinforce that is make the home a rich place of ideas, both that mirror the child's experience at home and that provide windows on the world.